What's going on, everybody? Long time no see. It's your boy JP, finally back, and today I have a freaking sweet phone for y'all. I mean, this is probably one of the sweetest phones I have brought this year or ever to my channel. This is the iQOO Neo 7. Yes, to my understanding, that's how it's pronounced. iQOO. Not IQ, which is what I always thought it was, how you pronounced it, but to my understanding, it's iQOO. If you don't know, for those that don't know, iQOO is the gaming phone sub-brand to Vivo. And of course, Vivo itself is a sub-brand to BBK Electronics, the same company that owns Oppo and OnePlus. And of course, Oppo has its own sub-brands, and OnePlus kind of has theirs, even though the Nord phones are still called OnePlus Nord. They're not just called Nord by themselves without OnePlus. Whereas, iQOO phones, they don't have Vivo. They don't have a lot of Vivo branding, if any at all. The OS is called something different. Oppo Oppo does something similar with the Realme phones. But enough rambling. Let's get to the specs. Let's see. Give me a second here. This phone already comes pre-installed with Android 13 out of the box. It's the first phone, to my knowledge, besides the Pixels, besides the Pixel 7 series, that has Android 13 out of the box. I realize other phones are getting the updates, your Pixel 6s, the ones before, a lot of your Samsungs. I realize that, but we're talking out of the box. This has it. This model here is the 12 gigabyte version, 12 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of internal storage, no expandable memory. It does have 5G. It does work. It does work in the US. It gets VoLTE, at least on AT&T. I haven't tested it on T-Mobile yet. A lot of these phones the past year or two have actually get better service on T-Mobile, which is crazy because 5 years ago or so, that wasn't the case. It was the other way around. You had a lot of AT&T. You had a lot of phones that were able to get AT&T's LTE early on, and it was years later before they were getting T-Mobile, if they ever got them at all, because the bands were so different. But this does have all the required bands for T-Mobile as well, for LTE and 5G, so I don't see why it wouldn't work. Let's see here. Moving right along. This does have a 120 hertz. It is an E5. That's right, E5, not E4. E5. It is an E5 Samsung Super AMOLED screen. It is HDR10 plus, and it gets all the way up to 1500 nits of peak brightness. That is crazy. Did I mention that this phone only costs like $440 or $450 at Giztop.com? And I selected the $28 or $29 shipping fee, the express shipping fee for DHL, and I got it within a week. Of course, I pre-ordered it. And it still didn't come out for another week. But when it did come out, they shipped it right out to me. I got like a little 5%, early bird discount that was sent to the email. But just like Flossie Carter, I do definitely recommend Giztop. It's not my first time ordering from them. They're great. This is a Chinese phone. I don't know if they'll have a global variant. They do have a global variant for the Neo 6 that came out earlier this year, so I don't see why they won't have a global one of this phone. Maybe it'll come out at the beginning of the year because, the beginning of next year, because this phone's specs are crazy. They're you wouldn't think that this was the Neo 6's successor. The Neo 6 has some good specs, don't get me wrong, but this one is just a huge leap. It's almost like they should have just skipped 7 and just called it the Neo 8. But I'll try to get to that without rambling too much because I'm trying to change how I do a lot of my videos here. But moving along, this AMOLED screen I keep bragging about is 6.78 inches. Of course, I'll round it up and just say 6.8 inches. It does run, iQOO's Origin OS Ocean skin, as they call it, Origin OS Ocean, which is, that's a tongue twister there. Say that 5 times fast. This bad boy has the Dimensity 9000 Plus. The 9000 Plus, okay? And that has the Mali G710 MC10. In other words, it is the 10-core Mali G710 GPU. Okay, it does have UFS 3.1. I think the RAM is DDR5. I don't think it's DDR5X, but it is DDR5 if I'm not mistaken, possibly 4X. That's one thing, you know, I'm not pulling up here right now, but nonetheless though, the main core, the Cortex X2 that is found in the Dimensity 9000 Plus is clocked at 3.2 gigs. And then the three Cortex A710s are clocked at 2.85, which is really good. And then, of course, the Cortex A510s, the efficiency cores, are clocked at 1.8 gigs, which that makes sense. This thing has a, and I'll turn it over here in a second. Here, actually, no, I'll go ahead and just do that right now because this phone is absolutely beautiful. This top just caught it black, and they had like 3 other colors, but this is the black one. And it's really not, Gistop is never specific with their colors. I mean, they just give them basic names. They don't go into the fancy names that the manufacturers give the phones. But this is, it's black in some light, and then it's like a gradient. Well, it's gradient altogether. Rather, you see black or blue. But when the light hits it, it's blue. And it is absolutely gorgeous. And it has a very capable camera system as well. Tons of freaking software features within the camera app. Tons of features. I mean, it's a lot of useful ones as well. But it is we'll keep it turned over here for the time being here. It is let's see here. It is a 50 megapixel main camera. It is a wide angle. The other one is an 8 megapixel ultra wide. And then you have a 2 megapixel macro camera. And then, of course, the front facing camera is a 16 megapixel. It does shoot in HDR. The back can do 4K 30 frames per sec or 1080p at 30 frames per sec or 60 frames per sec. And the front one only does 1080p at 30 frames per sec, which for the front ones I think that's you know, the norm if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. It does not have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, but it does have stereo speakers. It does have NFC. It even has your infrared port like a lot of your Xiaomi phones have. Wait, hold on. Does it? I didn't. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it does. I never realized it. And I've been through it, and I've had this phone for a week now. That's sad. And I always rave about that feature like Flossie Carter does. Of course, I don't really actually use it a ton like he may, but I think it's so cool that Xiaomi phones, most of them still include that. And the iQOO Neo 7 right here even includes it. And this isn't a company that's linked to Xiaomi in any way. This is actually their direct competitor. You know what? As far as Vivo and BBK, whatever you want to see it. This may compete with your Redmi, or well, actually competes with Black Shark because this is a quote unquote gaming phone. But it does have a USB Type-C, of course, obviously. It has an under-display fingerprint sensor. It works blazing fast. It does have the facial recognition works really well. It's blazing fast as well. It has a 5,000 milliamp battery, and it also has 120 watt wired fast charging, no wireless charging. I mean, man, all in all, what does that mean? Simply flagship specs, and I don't just mean 2022 flagship specs. I mean 2022 premium flagship specs. Make no mistake about it, the Dimensity 9000 Plus goes toe-to-toe with the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, just as the 9000 did with the standard 8 Gen 1. You don't believe me? Watch all of your videos right now about the ROG Phone 6D and the ROG Phone 6D Ultimate. There's a reason why Asus went the extra mile and added not only 2 more phones to the ROG Phone 6 series, but specifically made them with the Dimensity 9000 Plus as opposed to the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. Granted, they're only available in certain regions, but there are certain regions that have access to both. And I don't mean by importing. I mean, they can go to the store and buy one or the other. They can buy a ROG Phone 6, the ROG Phone 6 Pro, the ROG Phone 6D, or the ROG Phone 6D Ultimate, and there's some benchmarks where the Dimensity 9000 Plus with the 6D and 6D Ultimate are scoring more. And but even though they have Dimensity chipsets, which are generally cheaper than Snapdragons, those phones still cost upwards to $1,000. And that's before you actually try to import them in the U.S. I've seen them for like $980, $990, something like that, maybe $960 on Amazon and eBay. But this phone right here, if you want that power, granted, it's not going to get. This does have a lot of really neat. This does have a lot of that dual active cooling technology that that a gaming phone kind of has to have, to differentiate it from other phones that just simply have the same processor. But of course, you're not going to get the level in which the ROG Phone 6D and 6D Ultimate may have. But if you want to test the waters, if you want to try something different, you want to get that Dimensity 9000 Plus power, for a lot cheaper, without spending $900 or $1,000, because maybe you're willing to spend that on a Snapdragon, but not necessarily a Dimensity, even though they're almost, if not just as good, if not better, as certain benchmarks will actually show you. But you may have a trust issue, whatever that may be, and you may value a Dimensity a MediaTek processor a lot less than you do a Qualcomm processor, despite how even the power or the benchmarks are. To you, some people like me, I personally think that, if a Snapdragon variant is 800, the Dimensity variant, if it performs the same or better, should still be, $100 less, or so, just because, that's because let's be honest, that's how MediaTek has made it so big these past few years anyways, is because they've been competitively pricing their processors to the ODMs, where in terms they're able to offer their devices for cheaper. So I would honestly, even if it performed better than its equivalent, I would expect it to be the same price or if not less, just because it's just kind of it's not saying they're not good enough. It's kind of like when you compare a Hyundai or a Kia to a Honda or a Toyota. In my experience, I've had experience with all four. I don't think that any four of them are better than the other or vice versa. But when I go and get a Hyundai or a Kia, I generally expect to pay a little less per class, of course. Than a Honda or a Toyota. Even if the Hyundai and Kia has a little bit more tech, a better warranty. Of course, I'm not trying to get into that subject. I know a lot of people feel different about that. It's something that I discuss a lot of times because I'm also a car fanatic. But it's just one of those things where you just kind of it's not that you devalue them, because you just kind of. It's just something that you expect, but if you're really wanting a huge discount, away from a $900 or $1,000 ROG Phone 6D, it's been a couple weeks since I checked the price. It was like $980, $960, something like that last time. It might be $900 now, but if you want something significantly cheaper, this is the way to go. The Neo 7 right here with the same Dimensity 9000 Plus. This phone isn't even $500. I did get a 5% discount, of course, and with the DHL $28 shipping, I was out the door at like at 468 or 469, something like that. Of course, Giztop doesn't charge any tax. They are, out in China, if that means anything. But this phone has been a blast. It is a Chinese phone again, but I don't think I don't think your 6D and 6D Ultimate, your Asus ROG phones are outside of China yet. They may be trickling into other countries. But as far as I knew a week or two ago, the ones that I saw available were the Chinese variants. They do have GMS, which is Google Mobile Services, but not Google Play Services. But because it has GMS, you won't have a problem side-loading Google Play Services to get the Play Store, of course. But Giztop actually installs it for you, has it all ready to go before they ship it to you. So you'll get their phones. They'll kind of be unsealed. I mean, obviously they have to take it out to install, but it's really hard to even tell that they did that because the little plastic sleeves that go around the whole phones, the wrap, it looks like it never even came off. You can't even see any fingerprints or hair underneath the thing or anything like that. They generally try to place the seals back on the box if they're able to without tearing the cardboard, because sometimes the cardboard, depending on the material, will kind of tear if they try to take it off and reapply it or whatever. But nonetheless, they have it ready to go. Granted, now when you reset it, like if you were to resell it, if you reset it, it does take it off. But I mean, every phone has a lot of these Chinese phones. They have their own little store, their own store, and that's where you get the Play Store from. You just have to make sure that GMS is enabled in the settings. But most of these phones, the past year and a half, where GMS is now visible, it's usually on by default. And it's very easy. Of course, you have to install every single app manually, all of your Google apps and stuff like that. But of course, you can still go back in there and turn on your autofill settings and stuff like that. After the fact, those that have done that before know what I'm talking about. It's only difficult the first time you do it. Let me put it like that. So don't be afraid. Like I said, VoLTE works on AT&T, so obviously AT&T has accepted the phone without giving it the boot, because it's going to get the boot if VoLTE doesn't work. But VoLTE works. You don't have to put in no special little code like I was talking about a few months back with with some of your Chinese Xiaomi phones, not your global ones, but your Chinese ones. This is a Chinese phone itself, and it doesn't have to have any kind of code put in. I don't even know if that code would work on here or if that was a Xiaomi specific code, which I think it was actually. But nonetheless, I have played this phone for about almost a week. It'll be a week in 2 days. In 2 days, it'll be a week since I've had it. So I've had it for 5 days, and it's awesome. And I'm gonna tell you, you are not. I mean, an E5 display, an E4 at this price is fantastic. An E4, 120 hertz, adaptable. That's with this processor and the 120 watt fast charge and all of the other specs. At this price with an E4, you wouldn't have been able to complain. Sorry for that stutter there, y'all. I know every time I keep saying you, for some reason I'm over here stuttering, but you can't complain, even if it had an E4. But an E5 here, I mean, this is winning, absolutely winning. I mean, your Red Magic 7S Pro isn't even an E5. That's an E4. And that has a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 and, is more than this. I mean, the standard Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 powered Red Magic 7 Pro, with that same uninterrupted screen. Granted, that is a plus, when compared to this phone with the punch hole. I realize that. But it's still an E4. Even if you get the Red Magic 7, again, that doesn't have the punch hole either. It just has bezels, but it's still an E4. But this, it's just like having it's just like having your Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. It has the E5, the latest and greatest OLED tech. It's not just an OLED; it's the latest and greatest technology, latest and greatest Android out of the box. The latest and greatest a top spec flagship processor. It just happens to be from a different company other than Qualcomm. I know some people are funny about that. So I'll kind of let you be the judge there. I'm sure a lot of people kind of thought that this would have the 8 Gen 1 or 8 Plus Gen 1 because the Neo 6 actually had the Snapdragon 870. And that came out back in June. And this phone is just 2 steps ahead. If you consider the Dimensity 9000 Plus to be the equivalent of the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 as I do, it literally took, that's 2 steps above the 870. and the price tag didn't increase that much, which is fantastic given, the economy that we're in right now. Here in November 2022, November 13th, 2022, to be exact. But yeah, this phone is great. The OS is actually more stock, really, than you may think. I actually think that the Origin OS Ocean is pretty sweet, honestly. It's really cool. I have since forgotten exactly what Vivo calls their OS, because I know Oppo calls theirs Color OS, and of course that's supposed to be merging with OnePlus's Oxygen OS, but OnePlus has also backed away from that a little bit because of all of the outcries. Even though Color OS looked just like Oxygen OS with just a couple of more added features, some gimmicky, not all gimmicky though, as I've said in many other videos, because OnePlus was kind of headed towards there anyways, because a lot of their icons since the 7, I think, or the 8 rather, started getting bubbly like Color OS, and it wasn't until the 9 afterwards that they announced the merge. But as I was telling people, they were doing that. They started that a year before, and no one just really noticed it, But it's just not. It's not as bad as they made it out as a lot of people thought it was. They just didn't have. Any experience or any handling with Oppo phones. But the Origin OS Ocean here is I kind of feel like they're trying to be like Apple. Apple always names their like Mac OS X, and then Tiger, and then now they're into these mountains instead of the cats. And that subtitle comes after OS X or whatever. But and I don't even think I think they got rid of the X. I think it's just Mac OS now, and then the subtitle, and that's kind of what iQOO did here. But again, it's still Android 13. It's constantly has gotten OS updates. It has already gotten the November 2022 security patch. I got it like the next day or two after I had the phone. This camera's not. I don't know why it's doing this. I'm filming in 1080p 60 frames per sec, I think, because I swear I changed the settings before I started this recording, but there's a few stutters in here, and that's not the Neo 7. That's my camera, mind you. I do have I don't know if the adapter refresh rate has anything to do with the stuttering that you're seeing on the camera. Because I haven't had a lot of phones that actually had the adaptable refresh rate, and some of the ones I have had, I didn't have it set to it. I forced the highest refresh rate, but I've kind of gotten away from that. I kind of like the adaptable refresh rate more. After watching so many reviews that where the reviewers said that, and they just kind of, they just kind of gave all of the pros about using the adaptable refresh rate as opposed to just forcing the highest one. And I've found that it works really well with this phone and another phone that I have. It's the other phone. The other phone's an E4, so it's not as adaptable as the E5 here is. But nonetheless, I have definitely noticed a huge. My battery life has gotten a lot more efficient since switching to the adaptable refresh rate, and I can still tell when it goes up to 120 hertz. Like of course, most games that support higher refresh rates only go up to 90, but there's other things where I can notice that, and then I can see the 120 when I scroll a lot and stuff like that. So I do now prefer the adaptable refresh rate. Sorry, I don't know how to talk here or how to pronounce it, but that may be what you're seeing on the camera, the stutters that it does, I think. Like I said, don't hold me to it. I may have this camera, the settings wrong. Like I said, I thought I set it. It's at 1080, but I may have set it at 30 frames per sec instead of 60 by mistake. But yeah, this phone's been great. There's your charger there, your 120, your cable, your standard little TPU case that shows off the design of the phone. I always like those, actually. It does have a pre-applied screen protector on it already. There's your box there. Kind of give you an overview of that there. I like that yellow and that carbon fiber. that's nice. This actually reminds me of the OnePlus 7 Pro 5G McLaren edition that T-Mobile had a few years back. I think that was back in, when was that? 2019, the end of 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And I had that phone out. It was pretty freaking sweet. That's what this reminds me of, the yellow and the black carbon fiber and stuff. But yeah, y'all check this out. I had to bring something new here to the channel. I got the early bird from Desktop, and just a random email. And I was checking it out. I was like, man, I've been wanting to try the ROG Phone 6D. Not the 6, because I already had the Red Magic 7S Pro with the same Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. I wanted something different. And they announced the gaming phone with the Dimensity 9000 Plus, but it was a lot higher than I kind of thought it was going to be with the Dimensity chipset. And granted, I am a big MediaTek fan, so don't get it twisted, but I'm not going to lie to you. I do expect to pay less for them. I won't front on that. And then this came out, and it just, I see. I got to give that a try, and it blew my mind. This phone is fantastic. Definitely one of my favorite phones this year, if not my favorite. But anyways, I hope y'all enjoy this. Check, stay tuned. I got another video for another phone coming up. And I hope y'all enjoy this one. I hope all the specs that I ran down at the very beginning was a lot better than hearing me ramble on as I'm doing now still, but without, giving the specs little by little in between. This way here, if you don't feel like listening to me, you get all the specs within the first 5 minutes, and boom, you can go about your day. But I hope that I'm gonna try to get a little bit better about that too. This phone just really excites me. But anyways, I will check y'all in the next one. Peace out.